Today, let's talk about polysand. Polysand is the infill material that we use in the joints of pavers. So what it does is, instead of adding just regular play sand or something like that, polysand actually has polymeric compounds in it that will set up once it's activated with water, and it hardens up hard like concrete, but it still has flexibility so it doesn't crack. Now, the nice thing about polysand is it will fill these joints, and once these joints are filled, then it does a great job of weed prevention, and not only that, but it also stabilizes the pavers and really solidifies everything and makes them nice and solid. So the first thing you want to make sure when you're doing polysand is that all of your joints are completely clean of any sand, debris, anything like that. So today what we're going to do is hit this patio with our blower. We're going to blow out all of these joints and just make sure everything is really clean before we start. If you have any weeds or anything like that growing in your patio, you're going to want to pressure wash and get everything out of the joints, and then use a scraping tool and scrape out any weeds or anything that are in between the joints before you get ready to do your polysand. Things to polysand is that you need to make sure that your pavers are completely dry. Ideally, a day above 70 degrees is great. We'd like to have a couple days afterwards of 70-degree weather, or at least everything above 50 degrees and no moisture. So once you get everything cleaned out, a couple of the important things that you're going to need to have is, we like to use a stiff bristled broom like this to sweep in the majority of the polysand. And then once we get everything swept in and we compact, then we have a softer bristle broom that we go over, and that will get most of it cleaned off. Dust mask, super important. Polysand, anytime you're working with polysand, you want to make sure you're wearing a dust mask. An N95 dust mask is your best bet. You want to make sure that you're not breathing in any of this dust. So there's a lot of different types of polysand on the market. We prefer this SEK Polysweep polysand. This polysand is a great product. It can do skinny joints, big joints. We have used this for years, and it's just a great product. We don't have failures with this. The nice thing is installation is a little easier. It doesn't leave any haze on the pavers, which is great. And it comes in a variety of colors. We have blacks, grays, tans, platinums, even a white polysand. So what you want to do is, we'll sweep out this polysand like this, and we want to try to get it worked into all the joints with the broom. And then what we want is to leave this layer on top of the pavers like this. And what that does is, as we plate compact, it will vibrate and work that sand down into the joints, and any of this excess material will help to fill those joints. And we're going to do our plate compacting. We've got a plate compactor here, and you can see we have this pad. Is called a poly pad. A lot of guys will use a piece of carpet, even old mud flaps, but the right tool is a poly pad like this. And what this does is, this protects the pavers from getting scratched as we compact this sand into the joints. have cleaned our joints, we have blown everything off, we have swept in the polysand, and then we have gone over it with the plate compactor. After that is done, then we have swept off all the excess polysand, and you can see now there's just a slight bit of dust on the top of all of this, and a little bit of excess polysand in some of the joints. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our blower, and on a very low setting, we're just going to lightly blow the dust off of the patio and blow out any excess sand that is in the joints, so that we have nice even coverage and there's no more dust. Hard work to get your pavers cut in, start installing your polysand. One of the things you need to make sure when you're doing your final blow off, a lot of times polysand fails because the joints are too full. So what you're looking for on most pavers is they have this edge where you can see that it's kind of rough. So what we're really looking for with the final blow off of the polysand is that we are just up to that level. Anything higher than that will have a tendency, that's where it can start peeling or failing. So you want to make sure you blow out these joints just enough. It's a really precise part of the installation of polysand. It's just making sure everything is not too full and not too deep. You don't want to blow the sand completely out of your joints, but you don't want it any higher than these factory lips. Alright, so here it is, the moment you've been working so hard for. This is the final step, probably one of the most important steps. What we're looking to do right now is we want to just give a fine mist of water on this. You want just enough water that it soaks in without any pooling. So we use a normal garden hose sprayer. Gives us a lot of flexibility on the size of the spray. So what we're looking for is just a spray like this. I always suggest that you have someone helping you with the hose because you're going to want to move quickly. What you want is a nice even coverage over the whole area that you're working on. And so let's see how it goes. And what you're going to do is you're going to repeat this process 3 or 4 times. What you want is to put just enough water on it, like I said, so it's not pooling or anything like that. And as soon as you get it all covered, then you're going to wait until it starts to dry. And as soon as it starts to dry, you want to hit it again. And you're basically going to repeat that process, like I said, 3 or 4 times ideally, so that your water will get soaked all the way in without washing out any of your polysand. Is that you want to protect all the surfaces around the area you're working. The polysand dust, if you don't blow off everything, we always make sure we blow off decks, any hard surfaces. You want to blow off your plants, get those clean. Anything that could have got dust on it while you're working, you want to make sure you blow all that off. Otherwise the polysand will stick and it will stain.